Okay, Phil, we're live. So Phil, thank you for joining my office hours. Do you want to briefly introduce yourself and then maybe, I guess, introduce joint use in cities?
My pleasure. So thank you for the invitation. So my name is Phil Mann. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Airwise Solutions. So Airwise is a drone company focused on end-to-end solutions. So flight management, the drone data collecting side, photogrammetry, analytics, and the ability to put that all together. My background has been in drones, in smart cities, and a lot of autonomous type vehicles with a good background, additional background in precise navigation and timing. I'm based here in Silicon Valley in San Jose. And for this time, I'm going to share a presentation that really just tries to cover some of what Airwise does, but its purpose is to give the city of Palo Alto what capabilities one would be looking for in drones and a drone program for law enforcement and for potentially inspection or other city planning needs. And hopefully I've done a good job at sharing the screen.
Yep, I can see it.
Excellent. So I mentioned, so Airwise is a startup company, but one of the things that Airwise has predicated itself on is that in the drone marketplace, you have people who do drones, you have people who do software, but there's not a lot of really successful integration of it all, such that you can basically take your information and collect data and use it really well, and more importantly, be able to use it both precisely, at scale, and then to add the third side to that, making it easy. So just to start off with, right, when we're talking about drones, we need something that is a robot that collects data. So I'm showing here the Airwise hexacopter, this version of it, but this set of capabilities is the same for any device that a city would want. You're going to need something that's stable and reliable. So something that can work in the wind and work in bad weather, since cities don't stop just because the weather is bad. You want it to be fast. You want it to be able to easy to operate. For law enforcement can't wait. If they're beside an airport, they got to download some software and wait for permission for that drone to fly inside what is FAA restricted space. So, just one of these simple things where the drone needs to come with that off. Of course, we need the data to be secure. You can't just be beaming everywhere. You'd like the data really stored either on the drone and only on the drone, that can be then retrieved in some protected way, which again, another capability. Camera should be plug and play, such that one day I want camera X, another day I want a thermal camera, whatever device you have. You're going to need precision. So for example, in law enforcement, if you're going to use a drone to do an accident inspection. So today you can come to, there may be some tragedy, and we need to do some crime scene inspection. You can have very expensive, LiDAR solutions and do a survey, or you can fly a drone around for 20 or 30 minutes, provided it provides the precision. So that's a good capability. It should be able to do autonomous, right? Meaning that take that same crime inspection. Okay, here's the area, fly this grid, have the right overlap, have the right angles, such that you can create a proper 3D model of that scene whenever you need to at a later date. We're going to need the AI and the analytics behind that to analyze that. PX4 base is just one of these sort of open code. So I shouldn't say just open source code, but it is a de facto standard for allowing you to have additional features made, added, built yourself. And you want it to be secure, come back to secure data, but the whole drone should be cyber secure, such that there's no unwanted network connectivity. So from a police, point of view, like we talked about, fast to deploy, we want the no-fly zone off. We want it to be able to do overwatch scenarios, accident investigations, crime scenes, and you're going to need RGB for cameras and thermal for search and rescue. Here is actually a controller showing you using thermal. Actually, this is a scenario where someone has been lost and we're trying to find them, and you want a dedicated controller. So I'm talking a lot about the capabilities of the drone that one would want for law enforcement. Here's another sort of rescue scenario. This is actually just close to us in San Ramon, but here you have, the ability to deploy, whether it's a phone, first aid, food or water to someone who may be not easy to get to. Either someone is trapped or somebody is pinned down in some sort of sort of a situation of some violence, and then you can get them materials up to 2 pounds. Some drones can carry heavier weight, but it's just, you would want a capability, and really what we're trying to advertise here is a platform. If you think of the drone as this, how do we put all these capabilities such we make one investment and then we have all of these types of things? And we had spoken before about some specific applications for the city. So just expanding on this platform, agriculture, if there's a need for that, I don't know if the city would be interested in this.
We really don't have any agriculture here. So.
Yeah, California does. This is commercial real estate, but this is just highlighting the thermal capabilities, this 640 by 512. The other thing that's interesting here is that a lot of these lines, these are the power lines inside the building. But these can find humans, good guys and bad guys. Good guys if they're lost, bad guys if they're hiding. Inspections, there's a lot of big people doing cell tower inspections with drones. It's actually quite a substantial business with precision. I want to leave you with a thought of really sort of digital twins is what people call it. Like if I want to have a city and I want to be able to mock up where things are and then do my city planning, I can. So this is going to have some music with it, just a little bit loud. It just goes over the capabilities that I've just talked about here, but it's just a little bit more visually stimulating. So here you've got that controller, right, where I have something dedicated. It's not a phone. I'm not waiting to download on the software. Here we're working in an environment that's heavy in metal, so we want to make sure that the device can work really in any type of environment or location. This is this autonomous mission. So like for a crime scene investigation, this is how easy I can set up a particular mission. This happens to be a construction site that we're looking at. So again,
Phil,
this
do you
is just
have
demonstrating how easy it is to do a grid, to set up a survey, have the drone fly autonomous, and that can be done for law enforcement as well. Again, we have another construction example of something similar. This is like thermal inspection. So again, this can be used to find, souls that are lost or bad guys who are hiding.
Looking at the curing time of concrete, looking at the surface, you can see groundwater.
So Phil, do you have any kind of like higher level case studies? Like, okay, so city deployed, this is how many more crimes they were able to solve, or this is how they were able to prevent more power outages, or anything like that?
So for this presentation, I don't have command of that data. With one of the groups I'm going to introduce here second, we'll get the data of like how many crimes of a certain type could have been reduced by having a drone program.
Mm-hmm.
There are two companies in the Bay Area, or there's one company in the Bay Area, one in Southern California. They're quite good at that. With respect to the building inspections and digital twins and having all of that, I've been actually working well through a partner company called Skyline, who works with FEMA. So I should be able to, in about a week or two, get you some very precise and rich data in that area.
seeing spots in the building that vary a lot.
This is just showing you some of the 3D models that we can go through. I'm just going through this a little bit faster. This is that thermal inspection. It's an enormous tool because this was a real case where the building owner was able to find a lot more things wrong with the roof than without that. Even though this is a cell tower inspection, a lot of my law enforcement friends like this, right? Because they can see how versatile the platform is. In wind, we can be indoors, we can be outdoors, we can be close to, high dollar value assets. On a particular front. So just, I wanted to give you a flavor of what certainly the Airwise solution has, but what capabilities the city is going to be looking for. Because you're going to find there's a lot of drones that are very large, but they're very expensive. And they can do a lot of different things. And you can also find drones that are very small, but they're not as capable. And sometimes it's easier for a city or a police force to pick one platform and then just add accessories onto it. This is just giving you all the different flavors of autonomous missions. For law enforcement, the autonomous missions are really sort of, crime scene investigations is when people would want to use that. So fortunately, there's no silly music on this one here. Here is a building. We took the drone out of the box, we flew it for 20 minutes, and then we took the data and analyzed to create this digital 3D model of it. So now I can make very precise measurements. I can, if something has not come through, I can add to it. This gives me sight lines. Law enforcement love this, where I can see where a shooter could see or couldn't see. Here I'm analyzing the slope of a roof to see where the water would pool. I'm just sort of emphasizing here, like the advantage of a drone. I did all of that in about 40 minutes. This is a construction site, maybe not as much, but change management, where what earth was moved from A to B. I was actually the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers actually using the solution in this is a quarry in, I think, Oklahoma, actually. But it's not just a drone, right? You're going to need the software that can take this data and then make this data usable, right? We see a lot of drone programs go, okay, I flew the drone, I took my pictures. So how do I get my 3D model? And I haven't even thought about how to do that, or digital twin, or how do I make any of these analytics happen? And you don't really want to be hiring a bunch of GIS PhDs to do that all the time. Right, so this just, we're just really talking about, the software. So Airwise has a solution in the photogrammetry analytics that AI was talking about. It's purchased from us as a package, but there are other companies in the US, Context Capture, Pix4 is a big one, but ours is particularly precise and scales, fairly well. So training, we never really want to forget about the training side of things here. So these are these two organizations I was telling you about. There's the Los Angeles Regional Training Center. Now they're based just outside of LA. They probably train, a third of the police officers in the US, through their programs for indoor, outdoor drones. I'll be going to them to kind of get that statistical data that you were looking for about, hey, I had a drone program and it decreased types of things. They frequently come up to the Bay Area as well for training programs. They've got some fame in this area. There's also another Bay Area company. They tend to sell the DJI drones, the Aerial Intelligence Group. But I'm just sort of giving you like, hey, I bought a drone. Great. Do I have the software to analyze data? Yes. And do I have the ability to train? And do I have like a program to manage this, over time? Because it doesn't happen all by itself. And we see a lot of people where they will buy one or two drones, and then they hire a pilot who's just happened to be good at it or was doing it in their off hours. and that becomes their drone program, but then they're not really ready to go because they haven't put all of the reliability pieces in place. But from a budgeting point of view, you can obviously spend a lot more and spend a little bit less, but the capabilities that you've just been looking at here in this presentation, so the drone and the camera, so basically you're looking anywhere between sort of, $4,000 and $12,000, right? $12,000 for the very high end thermal cameras, $4,000 for the drone and for the camera. If we really want to do that flight planning software, properly, that tends to be like it. So CapEx is a one-time cost and OpEx, would be recurring. Photogrammetry. So that building you saw where we're having the precise measurements and we can do all the analytics for that. It really is a function of, this is not, by the way, the OpEx piece are not per drone. This is for your fleet. So for the photogrammetry analytics side of it, it really depends on how much data I'm crunching. If I'm crunching, a few thousand pictures, it'll be under 10K. If I'm crunching hundreds of thousands of images a year, it could be 60. If I'm crunching millions of pictures a year, images a year, it can be millions. Just to give you a flavor for that, right? It's unlikely that you're going to be in the $1 million range. So I'm working with a cell tower company. They have 54,000 towers across the US. They need 1,200 images a tower, and they want to do that every year. That's just, that's terabytes of information, right? So they need, they're sort of like in the $1 million range. But if you have, if we're only doing one a day, that's hundreds, right? Okay. Training, kind of $1,000. You probably want to redo that. I say operations, right? There's always going to be, I need a new battery, some training, FAA 107 licenses. You can sort of multiply this by like I could imagine for, Palo Alto, an initial drone program of, 4 to 8 drones, right? So you're asking about budgets, right? So it's probably, if you want to do this well, it's probably about, $70,000, $80,000 to do this well, and then have drones and some redundant stuff back up. If you want to do it as simply as possible, you can do it under 10K for maybe 1 or 2 drones and some flight planning software. So this is what I wanted to give you as quickly as I could. So I said 20 minutes, and I think I fit just inside that.
Sure, great. Okay, thank you, Phil. Yeah, so this as a technologist, and I have a few toy drones myself. And
Very good. So fire away with your questions.
Yeah, so this is great. But from the perspective of the city, though, can you talk a little bit about some of the use cases that cities can use it for that will make things more efficient?
So use cases for efficiency. So for law enforcement, the number one use is overwatch, right? So whenever there's a crowded situation or a stadium, something, they'll have the drones, such that they're watching on, they're watching what is going on. That's the number one law enforcement case. Then you sort of see surveillance, right, where they have a team and the law enforcement are chasing someone. They're going in to go after someone, and the return is very high because one of the business cases has been, if you're using the drones as a city, and the drones are going in to investigate where there are bad guys first, you can actually reduce your insurance, like the insurance that go on to law enforcement. We've actually seen budgets for drones come out of the insurance companies, on this particular front. Then search and rescue is going to be, another of the bigger ones, right? So somebody is lost and we need a drone to go out. This tends not to be in a city. This tends to be more, outside of the urban setting on that particular front. But I think you'll find that when people put in, it's the type of thing people can put like 30, 40, let's say even $100,000 into a drone program. They're going to save, anywhere from 10 to 20 times that when they would need like a manned helicopter to do something. But it's then the number of instances that they can use it, right? So one of the things that prevents people from using manned operations is the cost, and then a drone can solve that. There's another use case, right, where police officers will use the drone, even on the side of the road, right? They're going to pull someone over and they'll send the drone out. It tends to be a smaller handheld drone to make sure that whoever they're trying to interrogate, is calm, is not weaponized in some form. So one of the savings that you'll see drones come in is like, and we'll hear, or I'll paper this with the law enforcement guys of what lives it actually saves. For a city, in terms of planning, it actually can even be more valuable, right? So what I've been doing with this company Skyline and cities like Orlando and a few others is they'll use the drones to create a very rich 3D digital twin of the city. So now any and every bit of planning that goes on next, where are the pipes? Where is this? The construction companies are using this data to save money on huge projects. If there's any type of construction, whether you're building a highway, making a new road, there's a new building going up, just, plumbing, where does the damn pipes go on that particular front? So I think, Greg, what we can do with these questions is I wanted to give you capabilities. And if you want a list of use cases and dollar savings, I promise you, and I'm committed to it, maybe more of a written report that you could consume and then ask me questions following that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. I didn't want to create a lot of work for you, but
well, it's a labor of love, and it's we do it well for you, it'll help others.
okay, that sounds good. Yeah, one of the things that I think I told you about when we first met was Stanford Shopping Center tends to get these flash robberies where people go in there and they, like 10 people go into a store and they, in half a second or half a minute, they'll steal something and run out, right? And take like three, 4 different cars in different directions.
Mhm.
And those are like really hard for the police to respond to. How could a drone be used in that use case?
So I actually was talking to some of the law enforcement colleagues. So in a mall setting that's indoors,
No, it's
hard.
outdoors.
It's hard.
Out-
Stanford I know well, which is outdoors in that
Yeah.
sense. So a lot of law enforcement will tell you, look, having stationary cameras with the right software to track people are probably a little bit more effective in terms of tracking folks.
Yeah, I think the mall already has that.
Is it working or not well enough?
Well, not really, because I think they still
catches.
get hit. Yeah.
We still get, I don't think it's like the mall will still get hit. So the question is whether or not they get hit, but then will these perpetrators be found? I think that's
That's a problem.
That's the deterrent, right? If you know you're going to go in, you run away, but you get found, you would stop. So the solution for drones in this particular case, so it's expensive and complicated, right? Because in that scenario, to be in real time, the power of a drone is flying and it can track an individual, right? So this individual is running away. So if somebody feels that they're being followed, that's a deterrent, and B, you're for sure to catch, that particular perpetrator. But this implies, and there's plenty of tech out there for swarms. I think I mentioned this before, but I can have, 20, 30 drones, but to have 20 or 30 drones flying at any one time above the mall, one question I had not investigated is can we get a waiver for that? Like, would we be allowed to do that over Stanford Mall to have because what I'm talking about is it's like having a robot in the sky watching, and when it sees somebody who's running, okay, I'm going to follow that person, on that. So there's drones that can do it. There's the swarming technology that's available. It's not as well perfected. There's almost no use cases that I can find where somebody was doing that exact use case in an open air setting right now for specifically for a bunch of people go into a store and they run out and scatter after they've robbed it. But it's an interesting example. But my law enforcement guys are going cameras and then just good old fashioned police work and go track them down is what they would communicate to you if they were here right now.
Yeah, I have no idea because I was just asking, but because I know that it's a hard problem with the traditional setup to be caught, and that's why it happens a lot. Because and the criminals know that's easy. It's not like they're there for like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. They're there
No,
for
I
just
know.
such a short time, so it's hard for them to even respond. They can't get someone there in that time.
So the idea here is that no one can really respond in that particular amount of time. That's why. So I'd love to talk with Palo Alto police, but some of these. So this is the Huntington Beach police captain, who's like, look, even though we've got a lot of outdoor space, to have one, he didn't think he could get permission to have 20 or 30 drones flying above people all at once.
But do you have to have, you don't have to catch everyone, at least catch one of them, right? Because I think the problem right now is like it's hard for them to catch anyone because it happens so fast.
There's so I think there would be some questioning of why they're not catching. I have, technologically speaking, I've got partners who've got the software that will track and do the object detection that's going to go follow this guy. In a mall setting, right? Anybody could be running, right? Hey, this thing got robbed, but some people could be running to get to their car because they're late, and some people are running because they're trying to get away. And usually, a person running to get away is wearing a hat and a hoodie and something like that. So, the not many people that I could find have used a drone to basically observe a setting and then follow the bad guy. Like it's in a surveillance mode first, and then it's in a chase mode. I haven't run across anybody doing that right now. Does the technology exist? It does.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you, my dad used to work for the LA Police Department as a mechanic.
Yeah.
And LA had like a fleet of police helicopters. And what they would use it for is basically when they're like the first on scene. So when there was a crime that was being committed, they would send a police helicopter over and they could actually like follow the person around, right? And they had the thermals and all that.
Yeah.
And so they were able to, because it takes a while, especially in LA because of traffic, right? And LA is pretty big. So they would be kind of first on scene and they could tell the officers on the ground where the person went, right? The perpetrator. So that's what gave me the idea of like, but it's crazy expensive, right? I mean, for a city like LA, you're big enough you could afford it. But with drone technology being so much cheaper, you would think that, could a drone show up on scene before, the officers could, right?
So a drone can show up before officers show, right? Because like if you would, so let's sort of play this out for one example. Like say the drones were on the ground, and there was a robbery, and then you pressed a button, 3 drones could go up in the air immediately and start being in that surveillance mode. I've been taking the approach that you're not going to stop the robbery, but once the robbery has completed, I now want to object detect perpetrators and follow them such that I catch them.
Well, does it need to be autonomous, or can I just get there? Like, because I can imagine you could fly faster than you could drive, right? So could the drones like get there, and like it does have to be like doesn't have to be computer vision. It could just so that you could see where the person is, right? And
So
you could track them, and then you could see the license plate, and then you could tell the officers on the ground where the people are going.
So you triggered another thought. There's 2 aspects there, right? So I could have like a mission control where I've got trained pilots, law enforcement, so they're looking in real time, and they can be flying the drone remotely, right? We'll get if we have a small amount of drones, a city like Palo Alto, we can get like a waiver for flying beyond visual line of sight, for flying over people, and then and then you'd have, it's not autonomous, it's now a pilot flying it.
Yeah.
Which can be done, and you would have the drones ready to take off somewhere nearby, right? Like if
Well,
you,
Palo Alto is not big, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's within a 5-mile radius, you pretty much got the whole city.
so you could I guess I've not done the math. So imagine you have these drones like all on the roof of the police headquarters. Like how fast could a drone then get to Stanford? How close is the police headquarters? You still need a base, right? You need an operating base on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, just give me a second here. Yeah, so you're thinking, so what you're thinking of would work, right? I've got a fleet of drones ready to go, so I can have them set up autonomously, or I could have a mission control. Whether
Well, maybe autonomously they could drive, they could fly there, right? So maybe what
Yeah.
happens is, Tiffany at Stanford Shopping Mall is getting robbed, so it flies over there, and then once it's there, then the person takes over, right?
Yeah, you could easily do that, whether we're using an LTE network or not. But 5 miles isn't that. Even I hadn't thought about that. The longest range you would have is 5 miles. We could cover that.
Well, because we're not a big
I
city,
still don't
right?
know if you would get there fast enough. We should.
Well, how fast do drones fly?
Well, I mean, a drone can go. Drones can fly 10 meters a second. What's that? So that's they can go about 30 miles an hour. So 30 miles. Yeah. So they would be there in 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean that's much faster than the car can get there.
Yeah. Is that fast enough?
Well, the problem is that they're only in stores like for about half a minute to a minute, right? That's the problem. That's what makes these robberies really tough to stop.
Right. So, we'll do a little arithmetic on that one just to make sure that we can cover. We can cover, but that is a simpler solution, right? Where I have a smaller number of drones that are either.
Well, I don't know if you have to have a small number. You just need one, right? Just one to fly over there quickly. And then once because it's not like we have 50 robberies happening at once. We have usually like one.
Yeah, so maintenance guys are going to recommend that you have 2, right, in case the one is just not working well, but that type of thing. But I hear you.
But it just needs to launch like right away and literally go there. Once
Well,
a call comes in,
it just has to be ready, right? So it's in
Yeah.
a launch mode, like permanently, or
Yeah.
there's some sort of cycle through it. But that's easily done. There's actually quite a substantial program in the San Diego area, the Chula Vista guys, where they have like a drone in a box ready to pop out. So it's in a box that's ready to take off and actually do surveillance. I can provide you some use cases of what Chula Vista is doing. I think they've been using the Skydio products, but this is to have drones like scattered. In this case, they have them scattered all over the city, and the drone is, we call it drone in a box. It's a pretty sophisticated box because it's monitoring the health of the drone, it's making sure that it's powered. But then when you hit a button, it just doors open and it takes off. But they're still getting the drone there, and then there's what I call object detection. So,
well, I don't know if you get so fancy. And I think it's a hard problem, but once it's there, a human operator could take over.
that's right.
And
A human operator could do it. You could do that, and within a 5-mile radius, you could do everything, maybe through some Wi-Fi, but you could certainly do that over an LTE network, specialized
Yeah.
one.
because once the drone's there, because they hopefully could get there before the officer by car could get there, and then it can help try to track some of the people.
Do the law enforcement officers, right? So it's just the time, right? So I think a drone can get there within a minute. So if that's enough, That's interesting. And then can pilot then control the drone and follow, one of the perpetrators well enough. The quality of the drone and a drone camera to see a license plate, or, I mean, it's going to be up, but it's not a satellite, right? So it can see human features for sure on that particular front. And if we had a thermal camera on it, not that everybody has a unique thermal identifier. But that could be done. But that's the Stanford. That was one example. And I know you had another example of trying to do, I think you were looking at parking violations as well.
Oh yeah, I was just curious, right? You can, because I can imagine. I'm just thinking about whether they could do it automatically, like just fly along and then scan the license plates.
So that one's easier in that respect, right? Because the cars are parked. So yeah, you could set up autonomous missions, and then they're timestamped, so you would know exactly how long a car is there. Interestingly enough, my law enforcement guys are going, why don't you just put cameras on the streets? It'll be more permanent. But
yeah.
But a drone would certainly be more dynamic. And anyway, I was imagining this problem on university. I could just that one I think is a great program that is very doable. I'm just sharing. My law enforcement drone guys are going, just use ground cameras. Don't bother with a drone. Because they were.
I think you're right. Probably for parking, you could maybe do it that way. But I think the challenge is how do you get the right vantage point to see the license plate, right, when the cars are parked. But kind of the situation in cities is that labor is really, really expensive, right? We all have union labor, and a police officer costs you $300,000-$400,000 a year, right, fully loaded. So they're very, very expensive people. Maybe sometimes even more with overtime, and so the question is, how do you use technology to kind of get a more leverage out of your workforce, right?
The drone in this particular case, for areas, because one, its altitude is variable, the camera tilt is variable, and that you can make, autonomous. It would just be a question of having the willpower to get the to have the city, approve the flying over, usually over pedestrians. But I don't think that one is very doable. And as you just pointed out, I mean, the business case solves itself. Now you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on a drone instead of a police officer doing the whole ball of wax.
So Phil, we need to move on to our next office hours, but thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I have some follow-up, and I will take care of that and send you some emails.